Hey, welcome back again. And as we get into the blog this week, I want you to think about a movie that you really like. And not just a funny one, but one that you found inspirational or motivational. And it really touched you. And you want to share that movie with a friend so they can kind of experience it too. But you don't have enough time to let the whole movie just play out at normal speed. So what would you choose to fast forward through? What scenes would you skip? Where would you land and let it play out? To try to let them see what you saw and understand what you thought was important. That's kind of the way the gospel writers have to handle the life of Jesus. They want to share it with us, but there's not enough time to just let the whole thing play out. So they choose different scenes and different speeds to go through the gospel story. As we get to this point in Jesus' life in our study of John, he handles it differently than Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, and Luke have Jesus coming down the hill for the triumphal entry. And if not literally picking up speed as he comes down the hill into the city, at least figuratively, he does. And they come down, it's almost like they take the remote and they hit fast forward maybe just one time. So it's not blazing through it, but it's moving at a pretty good clip. Through the triumphal entry, through that last week, the discussions, the debates, the events leading up to the cross, and the way they handle it, the Last Supper on Thursday night in the upper room, gets 12 verses, maybe 20 verses. They cover it, but it's pretty quick. John does it different. John has Jesus coming down for the triumphal entry in chapter 12. And then it's like he takes the remote and hits scene select and skips a lot and jumps right to Thursday night in the upper room. Then he hits play and lets it just play out at normal speed. And he gives 5 chapters to that upper room time, Jesus and his disciples. Chapters 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's Jesus' longest discourse with his disciples. It's Thursday night. The Jews have been trying to kill Jesus for about 2 years and haven't been successful because it wasn't time. It wasn't God's time. But now it is. As they're in the upper room on this Thursday, it's 15, maybe 18 hours until Jesus dies on the cross. So that's kind of the scene there. Now as you read John chapter 13, because that's where we're headed this week. Right now we're going to skip chapter 12 for now. They're going to cover 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 over the course of 4 weeks. Then we'll come back and take chapter 12 and run from the triumphal entry straight to the Gethsemane and the cross leading up to Easter. So as you read chapter 13 this week, go back and read Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 11. And notice these words, where it talks about have the same attitude that was in Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God. Then it also says, taking the very nature of a servant. The word nature is morphe. It's the essence, the inner nature, the inner being, that which you really are and does not change. When it talks about Jesus, his very nature is God, deity. But he also took the very nature of a servant. How odd. We've talked before, especially always around Christmas time, that Jesus was 100% God and 100% man. And what a paradox that is. But what about also that he is God and he is a servant? Both those things are his inner nature. He is deity. That is who he is. That is his nature, and that will never change. And he is servant. That is his inner nature, and that will never change. He is God. He is servant. And that's kind of hard to get your mind around. Now his outward appearance, form of a man, that talks about what you see on the outside, but on the inside, that's who he is. He not only came to serve, he said in Matthew 20:28, I came to serve. He didn't just come to serve, he came as a servant. And there's a difference. So now they're in the upper room, Thursday night, and the disciples have dirty feet. Okay? Literally, they have dirty feet. The streets are dusty, muddy, and animals travel up and down the streets, you can just imagine. And it was reserved for the lowest slave to wash the feet. But Jesus will do that. The disciples also have dirty feet figuratively. They have pride. check out Luke chapter 22, and Luke tells us that they were arguing about who's the greatest. This is at least the third time the disciples have been arguing about which one of them is the greatest, and they always do it in the context where Jesus is talking about his death, as odd as that seems. And so Jesus then takes the towel, takes the water, and washes their feet. He stoops, he bends, and he serves. So as you read 13, think about these things. Look for Jesus, who he understands that he is and what he's come to do. He's very well aware of who he is and why he's there. Think about what he does, and think about who he does it for. Who are these guys? Who all is in that room? What have they said? What have they done? What will they do? Whose feet is Jesus washing? You know, we say a lot of times we want to be like Jesus, and we should. And that should be our goal as Christians. What is he like? The writers of the Bible have a lot to say about Jesus. What did Jesus say about himself? See if you can find in the New Testament where Jesus says about himself, "Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart." And I'll see you Sunday for John 13.